If you have an online store, one of the things you probably do is check to see how often people abandon their carts. And maybe that's a little discouraging or frustrating when you see how high those numbers are. What if AI could help you create an abandoned cart sequence? Hi, I'm Appy from My Code Happy. I'm a website and data advisor, and I love to help my clients get websites that work for them. And that includes things like an abandoned cart email sequence. The general abandoned cart rate is something like 70%. Almost half the time, that's due to people seeing unexpected expenses in their cart. Things like shipping, other fees. I know I've done that. I put things in my cart to see how much shipping is going to be. And when I see that shipping fee, a lot of times I just say, oh, I'm going to wait. So as a side note, before we get to AI, that's something you can do on your website is to make shipping and other fees really clear so that people know what to expect when they get to their cart. And that can help reduce those abandoned carts from people not knowing what those extra fees are going to look like. Okay, let's get back to how can AI help you set up an email sequence for your abandoned cart. I was helping a client with this just a few weeks ago. And one of the first things I did is I went to AI and I started to ask it some questions. We're going to do a demo today of 3 prompts for AI that can help you start developing your abandoned cart sequence. When we get to the end of the video, I'll show you those 3 prompts plus several others, and you can take a screenshot if you like to try these on your own. So keep an eye out as we get closer to the end of the video. So the prompt we're going to start with is a little strategy. What should this abandoned cart email sequence look like? Is there anything that's specific to my industry as far as how many emails and the timing and the kind of messaging that I include in these emails? Does it depend on the kinds of customers that I have in my business? So let's take a look at the first prompt. For this demo, I'm going to go back to my client that is a local women's boutique. So here's what the prompt says when it's customized for her. What are best practices for abandoned cart sequences for a women's boutique that sells casual, trendy, and a little Western clothing and accessories for women? Include timing, number of emails, and messaging approach. So you can customize this prompt for your industry and maybe a little bit about your vibe. So the response to this prompt gives me a little bit of recommended timing and sequence. It recommends a 3 email sequence over 3 to 4 days. And here's a little bit about the first email. It should be a gentle reminder. It should come 1 to 2 hours after the cart is abandoned. And the goal is to remind somebody and re-engage. It's friendly, it's casual, maybe a little bit Western because this particular client is here in Wyoming like I am. And it tells you a little bit of the content, gives you some example subject lines. So this is something you can try, like I said, with your industry and your vibe, and you can see what you might get. Here's the second email after 24 hours, and it's just going to encourage and inspire people. We're not trying to force people or add a lot of pressure, but we do want to inspire people where if they really do want this thing that they have in their cart and they just haven't had time, they're just maybe a little on the fence, where they can have the information they need to make up their minds and decide if this is what they want. The third email comes after 48 to 72 hours, so 2 to 3 days. And the goal is maybe a little bit urgent with things that are only true. So if there is low stock and that is honestly true, then we can let them know that. This would be the point that if we're going to offer some kind of a discount, that might be the place to do that. And there's some example subject lines there. So the last part of the information from AI is to let us know what kind of messaging we want to put in this sequence. A little bit of strategy. We want to match the brand vibe, so we want to sound like ourselves. Whatever the brand voice is, we want to keep that. We want to keep it personal if possible. We want to use language that can help them understand what it would feel like to purchase this item. What is it going to feel like to wear this fun pair of boots? What's it going to be like to have this awesome new pair of jeans? If there's anything that they're not sure about, we can help get those questions out of the way, a little bit of an FAQ style. We can help them understand if there's going to be another opportunity to buy, if maybe this is their last chance. What would a return look like if they needed to do that? What about sizing or anything that they need a few more details on to help them understand if this is really the right product for them or not? And we're also going to want to make sure that these emails that you can read them on a small screen. So we got a lot of information from the first prompt. What if we want to know a little bit more about discounts? Because that's something that is a big question about abandoned cart emails. Should I offer a discount? When should I offer a discount? How much? And what should that look like? So we're going to ask this next prompt to narrow in on discounts and get a little bit more information. So this says for clothing and accessories selling at this particular price point, we're saying $30 to $150. Should I include discounts? If so, when and how much? So AI gives us a response here too, and gives us a little bit more strategy. It says to only offer a discount if the customer hasn't responded to the first email or two. Maybe as a business, we rarely run sales and we want to really give them a compelling reason to go ahead and purchase. It could depend on the particular product, depending on how much automation you have available to you in your platform. We get trained to look for discounts at particular times. So there's a little bit of a balance between training your customers that if they abandon their cart, that they might get a discount, and encouraging people to go ahead and purchase again if it's right for them. So that's a little bit of a balance that you'll have to weigh as the business owner and decide what your strategy is. So here's the summary for the discount guide for this particular client and what discounts might look like in this particular abandoned cart series. So the last prompt is a little bit more of a technical question. And I put this in here next because I ran into a platform recently where adding a link to your cart was actually difficult, if not impossible. And so I added this in because when I first thought about doing an abandoned cart sequence for that particular platform, I wasn't aware of how difficult that would be to add a link to the shopper's cart. So for a platform like Shopify, it's really trivial. They give you a template and the links to a shopper's cart are right there and available. But if you're selling from a different platform, it's worth checking into how difficult the technical side of setting up these abandoned cart emails is going to be. So the twist here is that Shopify distinguishes between abandoned cart and abandoned checkout. When you've started the process of checking out, you've entered your email address, and it's easy to send you a link to your cart and see if you want to continue the checkout process. Other platforms may not distinguish between these, and it's just a matter of how deep in the weeds you want to go to see if you want to try to recover both of these, maybe with separate email sequences. That's all I'm going to say about that, and we'll keep moving on. From this point, what do? We have a little bit of strategy, but we don't have emails yet. At this point, this is when you can start asking AI to help you write your email sequence. You can ask it for subject lines, for email content, for CTAs, and you can have it help you lay out the entire sequence. And then you can even ask it to help you walk through setting up the sequence depending on your platform. So here are some prompts that might help you with that entire process, some strategy questions, some platform prompts, and some messaging questions that you can also ask AI to help make sure that you stay on brand with your content as it helps you develop the abandoned cart sequence. You can screenshot this if you would like. And if you try any of these prompts, let me know in the comments. And especially if you make your own adjustments, let me know how you tweaked it for yourself and what worked. So we've used AI to help us figure out a strategy for an abandoned cart sequence or abandoned checkout, depending. We have had it help us figure out what we should offer for discounts and if we should offer discounts. We've had it help us figure out the technical side and whether we can add a direct link to the cart or to the checkout for our visitor to be able to click on that from the email. And finally, we talked about how to finish out the sequence, to develop the content, and have AI help us with all the different parts of developing the sequence and getting the messaging, getting the entire sequence laid out so that we can have this automated sequence working for us. The final piece is to keep an eye on the numbers. What you want to see is if the sequence is effective. You want to see if people come back and purchase when they receive these emails. And then you can tweak depending on the numbers. I wouldn't do it every week, obviously, depending on your volume. If you have a lot of shoppers and you have a lot of people receiving those emails, that can give you more data more quickly. But give it a little time and see how it's working over time, and then tweak your emails to see if they work a little better. One caveat to that is make sure that if people are purchasing due to the emails, that your return rates don't go up as well. So make sure that people are really wanting to purchase these things and that you're helping people buy what they do actually want to buy, not just putting pressure on them. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me again.